I thought the hardest part of planning my wedding would be the seating chart. I never imagined it would be discovering that my best friend's fiancé was intentionally trying to sabotage our big day, and then having to decide if I should blow up her life to save her from him. This story gets insane really fast. So if you believe that loyalty and friendship is everything, hit that subscribe button now. If you had told me that the perfect shade of cornflower blue would become the color of betrayal, I would have laughed in your face. But there we were, just 3 weeks before my wedding, with fabric swatches fanned out across a small table at our favorite downtown coffee shop, and that exact color was the symbol of everything good and right in my world. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, a warm, comforting cloud that seemed to insulate us from the gray Ohio sky outside. Emily held a swatch of the silky fabric against her cheek, her eyes bright with an excitement that mirrored my own. "It's perfect, Sarah. It matches the bridesmaids' bouquets exactly. Are you sure you're okay with me spending this much on a dress for your wedding?" I waved her off, taking a sip of my latte. "Are you kidding? You have to get it? You're my best friend. You're supposed to outshine everyone but me." She beamed, that wide, genuine smile that had made me feel welcome from my very first week in this city. "Deal. It has to be perfect for your big day. You deserve nothing less." And I believed her. I believed in her friendship more than anything. When my husband, Michael, he had been offered a promotion that moved us from sunny California to the Midwest, I'd felt a deep, isolating loneliness for the first 6 months. The world seemed to be painted in shades of gray, and I was just a ghost drifting through it. Then, I'd forced myself to join a yoga class, and there was Emily in the front row, a vibrant splash of color in neon leggings, with a laugh that filled the entire studio. She invited me out for coffee that day, and it was like the sun had finally broken through the clouds. She wasn't just a friend. She was my anchor in a new and unfamiliar place. She carefully folded the fabric swatch and tucked it into her purse, then pulled out her phone. "Okay. So Tyler and I booked the hotel room. We're coming in Friday afternoon and staying until Monday morning to help you guys with the cleanup. We're making a whole weekend out of it." She showed me a picture of the charming little inn near our venue. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and for the 1,000th time, I felt a wave of gratitude that she was in my life. We spent another hour talking about every little detail, from the signature cocktails to the playlist for the reception, our voices buzzing with shared joy. That feeling of warmth and light carried me through the rest of the afternoon. It wasn't until later that night that the first chill set in. I was in the kitchen, tasting the sauce for the pasta I was making, when I heard Michael's car pull into the driveway. The sound of the engine cutting off was normal, but the slam of the car door was just a little too hard. His footsteps on the hardwood floor of the hallway were heavier than usual. He walked into the kitchen, dropped his briefcase by the door, and loosened his tie with a sharp tug, as if it were choking him. He didn't meet my eyes. "Hey, honey. Rough day?" I asked, turning to give him a kiss. He accepted it, but his lips were a firm, tense line. He moved past me to the fridge and poured a glass of water, drinking half of it down in one go. "I had lunch with Tyler," he said, his back still to me. My good mood faltered. "Oh, how is he? Is everything okay with the wedding plans?" Michael finally turned around, leaning back against the counter. His expression was one I'd never seen before, a mixture of anger and confusion. "Yeah. You could say it was about the wedding plans. Theirs, not ours. It was about Emily's bachelorette party." "What about it?" I asked, my stomach giving a little lurch. "I thought her friends were handling that." "They are. Michael said, his voice flat. It's a surprise party for her. A whole weekend trip. Tyler was telling me all about it. He paused. And in that silence, a dreadful feeling began to unspool in my gut. Michael, what is it? He looked at me then, his eyes dark with something that looked like pity. He planned it for the last weekend of April. Sarah. I just stared at him, my mind refusing to process the words. The last weekend of April. Our wedding was on Saturday, the 26th of April. What do you mean? That's our wedding weekend. I know, he said quietly. He told me he's going. But obviously, Emily can't. She doesn't even know about the party yet. It's a surprise. Remember. The wooden spoon I was holding clattered into the pot of sauce, splattering red dots across the white countertop. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, came next. He asked me not to tell you. Michael continued, his voice laced with disbelief. He said he didn't want you to run into Emily before the wedding and have it be awkward. He wanted me to keep it a secret from you. My own wife. Until it was too late for you to say anything to her. A hot, prickling sensation spread up my neck and across my face. It wasn't just embarrassment or disappointment. It was a feeling of being utterly dismissed. As if our wedding, our friendship, our plans that had been set in stone for over a year, were nothing more than a minor inconvenience on his calendar. Awkward. He wanted to avoid things being awkward for him. Did you ask him why my voice was barely a whisper? Why in God's name would he choose that weekend? I did, Michael said, shaking his head. He gave me some garbage answer about how it was the best option they had and that it was the most convenient fit for everyone else's schedules. It made no sense. Sarah. None at all. A cold, sharp anger, the kind that clarifies things instead of clouding them, began to solidify in my chest. Convenient. A man who was about to marry my best friend had looked at a calendar, seen our wedding marked on it, and decided that his plans were simply more important. He hadn't made a mistake, he had made a choice, and he had tried to make my husband his accomplice in the lie. Suddenly, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. It was from a few months ago. Over brunch, Emily had been laughing about something Tyler had done. What was it? Oh, right. He had created a color-coded spreadsheet to manage their vacation time with both their families. She'd rolled her eyes playfully, a fond smile on her face. He treats our social calendar like it's a quarterly earnings report that needs to be optimized, she had said with a laugh. At the time, I'd laughed with her. It seemed quirky, a little intense, but harmless. Now, the word optimized echoed in my head with a sinister ring. This wasn't a scheduling conflict. This was a power move. Michael finally pushed himself off the counter and came towards me, his face softening as he saw the look on mine. He picked up his phone from the kitchen island. I'm calling him, he said, his tone resolute. I'm going to call him right now and tell him the invitation is withdrawn. For both of them, we don't need people like that at our wedding. He started to dial, his thumb hovering over Tyler's name. But I reached out and put my hand over his, stopping him. The anger in my chest had cooled into something else. Something harder and heavier. It was determination. No, I said, my voice steady. Don't call him. Not yet. Michael looked at me, confused. Why not? This is unacceptable. I know it is. I agreed, looking past him, my mind already racing. connecting the dots of a picture I didn't want to see. But a phone call is too easy. He tried to handle this in the shadows, to manipulate all of us. If he wants to play games, we need to understand the rules first. There's something not right about this. Sleep didn't come that night. How could it? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's smug, handsome face, heard his dismissive words echoed through Michael's voice. It'll be easier. Easier for whom? For him. The architect of this casual cruelty. I lay perfectly still, staring up at the shifting shadows the moon cast on our ceiling, while Michael slept beside me, his breathing slow and even. He had his anger. A clean, hot fire that he could channel into a single phone call. Mine was different. It was a cold, creeping thing, winding its way through the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my friend's relationship. I kept replaying that memory of Emily at brunch. Her fond, exasperated laugh as she described Tyler's need to optimize their lives. It wasn't a quirk. I saw that now. It was a compulsion. It was about control. Dressed up in the language of efficiency. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed, its red numbers ticking forward with agonizing slowness. 2:17 a.m. 3:42 a.m. 4:58 a.m. With each passing minute, the injustice of it all settled deeper into my bones, becoming less like a wound and more like armor. The next morning, the house was unnaturally quiet. We moved around the kitchen in a shared, unspoken tension. I poured 2 mugs of coffee. The dark, bitter aroma doing little to cut through the exhaustion. Michael took his knuckles white around the ceramic. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I often sat with Emily, planning and dreaming. Now it felt like a war room. I still think I should just call him, Michael said, breaking the silence. His voice was rough with sleep and lingering anger. Tell him he's a manipulative piece of work and that he's not welcome anywhere near our wedding. And what would that accomplish? I asked. My voice tired, but firm. I swirled the coffee in my mug, watching the dark liquid spin. He'd twist it. He'd run to Emily and tell her that we overreacted, that we're being dramatic. He'd paint himself as the victim of a simple scheduling mistake, and us as the bad guys who uninvited her from our wedding out of spite. Michael's jaw clenched. He knew I was right. So we just let him get away with it. We let him lie to her and disrespect us. No, I said, looking up from my mug to meet his gaze. We don't let him get away with it. But we can't fight him on his terms. He thrives on manipulation and plausible deniability. Yelling at him just feeds into that. We have to be smarter. I took a deep breath. There's a reason he went to all this trouble to lie. Michael, a simple scheduling error doesn't require this level of deception. It doesn't require telling you to lie to your own wife. He's hiding something. And it's bigger than just a party. The determination that had sparked the night before was now a steady flame. The need to understand was overpowering the need to react. I just have to see something, I murmured. More to myself than to him. I pushed my chair back, walked into the living room, and retrieved my laptop from my work bag. Back at the table, I set it down. The soft click of the lid opening, sounding loud in the quiet room. My phone lay on the table beside it. A silent, dark rectangle of potential. I opened a web browser and navigated to Facebook. My fingers moving with a purpose I didn't know I had. I went straight to the profile of Emily's maid of honor. A cheerful, bubbly woman named Jessica, whom I'd met a handful of times. Her page was a cascade of bright, smiling photos brunches. Weekend trips. Birthday parties. It was a curated world of perfect happiness that felt like a mockery of the ugly truth I was hunting for. I scrolled down, my eyes scanning past engagement, announcements, and baby pictures. Going back weeks. Then a month. It felt invasive, like I was peering through a window I had no right to. But I couldn't stop. I was looking for a crack in the facade. A single piece of evidence that would prove the lie. And then I saw it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was a small, innocuous comment buried under a group photo of Emily, Jessica, and two other friends. All of them laughing. Clinking champagne glasses on a restaurant patio. The photo was posted about 5 weeks ago. I scrolled through the string of heart emojis and compliments until I found Jessica's reply to another bridesmaid. It read, "Can't wait for the surprise getaway in May Chwal." May. Not April. The word hung there on the screen. A digital confirmation of my deepest fears. A cold wave washed over me. So intense, it felt like I'd been plunged into icy water. My coffee, which I'd been sipping moments before, suddenly tasted acidic and bitter in my mouth. There was another plan. There was another option. A perfectly good option in May that wouldn't have conflicted with anything. Tyler's story about our wedding weekend being the best option they had wasn't just a lie. It was a fabrication built on top of a deliberate choice. He hadn't just accepted a bad date. He had sought it out. He had actively chosen our wedding weekend. Manufactured a conflict. And then built a cage of lies around it. The chilling realization settled in my stomach like a stone. He did this on purpose. He did this to isolate Emily. To make a decision for her without her input. To assert his control over her life and her friendships. I turned the laptop so Michael could see. He read the comment. Then read it again. The color drained from his face. "That son of a bitch." He breathed. The words barely audible. I looked at him. My own shock reflected in his eyes. "This isn't about our wedding anymore." "Is it?" I said quietly. "He's testing her. He's seeing how much he can control before they're even married. This is how it starts." A fierce, protective loyalty for Emily surged through me, eclipsing everything else. My wedding day felt secondary. What mattered was the woman who had shown me such kindness, the friend who was walking into a trap with a smile on her face, completely unaware that the man she loved was the one setting it. "You're right," Michael said, his anger now cold and sharp. "Just like mine. But what do we do? If you tell her what you found?" "He'll just deny it. He'll say the May plan fell through. He'll tell her you're jealous or trying to cause trouble. It'll be your word against his. And she loves him." He was right. Tyler had insulated himself perfectly. Any direct accusation would be deflected. And I would be the one who looked like a monster. Trying to ruin her happiness, just weeks before my own wedding. The thought made me sick. I needed proof. I needed something she couldn't ignore. Something that came from his own mouth. The idea bloomed in my mind. Terrifying and brilliant, all at once. He can't deny his own voice. I whispered. He can't deny his own words. My gaze drifted to my phone. Still lying dark and silent on the table. I need him to say it himself. I need him to confess. And I need to record it. The plan felt insane. Like something out of a movie. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the only path forward. I started to pace the kitchen. My mind racing. I couldn't go in angry. I couldn't accuse him. That would put him on the defensive immediately. I had to do the opposite. I had to play to his ego. I had to make him feel smart. Like he'd pulled off a clever maneuver and I was impressed. I had to make him feel so confident in his own manipulation that he'd want to brag about it. I stopped pacing and picked up my phone. My hands were trembling slightly, but my resolve was solid. I opened up a new text message and pulled up Tyler's name. My thumb hovered over the empty text box as I carefully constructed the words, choosing each one like a weapon. It had to be perfect. Friendly. Non-threatening. A Trojan horse of a text message. After several drafts, I had it. Hey Tyler. Michael told me about the mix-up. Honestly? No worries. This stuff happens. If you want to grab coffee, maybe I can help you figure out how to break it to Emily gently. I read it over and over. It was perfect. It offered him an alliance. It validated his lie. It made me sound like a harmless, helpful friend who was on his side. My finger trembled as I pressed the send button. The little blue bubble popped up on my screen, and I set the phone face up on the table. Michael and I both stared at it, as if it were a bomb waiting to go off. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, the 3 little dots appeared, dancing on the screen. He was typing. My heart hammered against my ribs. A new message popped up. Yeah. That'd be great, actually. Tomorrow at the Daily Grind, 10 a.m. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A grim sense of triumph settled over me. He had taken the bait. He was walking right into it. The trap was set. That next 24 hours was a special kind of hell. A quiet, internal agony of anticipation. The night before the meeting, sleep was a distant memory. I lay perfectly still, staring up at the shifting shadows the moon cast on our ceiling, while Michael slept beside me, his breathing slow and even. How could he sleep for me? Every tick of the clock was a drumbeat, marching me closer to a confrontation that felt both necessary and catastrophic. I imagined the conversation 100 different ways, each scenario ending in failure. He'd see through me. My phone would die. I'd lose my nerve and say the wrong thing. Around 2 a.m., I slipped out of bed. The floorboards cold beneath my feet. In the sterile blue light of the living room, I sat on the couch with my phone, my supposed weapon. It felt flimsy and inadequate. I opened the voice memo app, its simple red and black interface looking almost comically mundane for the task ahead. I held it up and recorded myself whispering, testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear this clearly? I played it back. My own voice sounding thin and reedy. A stranger's voice full of a fear I was trying desperately to conceal. What if it wasn't clear enough? What if the background noise of the coffee shop drowned him out? I checked the battery percentage, 98%. I plugged it in anyway, watching the little lightning bolt icon appear as if it could charge my own courage. Michael found me there an hour later, a silhouette in the doorway. You're torturing yourself, he said, his voice thick with sleep. He came and sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, the warmth of his body a temporary shield against the chill of my own anxiety. I feel like I'm about to ruin her life, I whispered, the confession hanging in the silent room. What if she hates me for this? What if she chooses him? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You're not ruining her life, Sarah. You're giving her the truth. A life built on his lies would be the ruin. You're trying to save her from that. He squeezed my shoulder. For Emily. His words didn't extinguish the fear, but they gave it a purpose. I was doing this not out of anger for myself, but out of love for her. That thought was the only thing that got me through the rest of the night. The drive to the Daily Grind the next morning felt surreal. The traffic lights seemed to take an eternity to change. Each red light another moment for my stomach to twist itself into a tighter knot. The radio was playing some cheerful pop song that felt like a personal insult. When I pulled into a parking spot, I had to sit in the car for a full 5 minutes. My hands gripping the steering wheel. Just breathing. In for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. It was a technique my yoga instructor, the one who introduced me to Emily, had taught us. The irony was bitter. The coffee shop was an assault on the senses. A whirlwind of activity that made my own internal chaos feel even more pronounced. The air was thick with the rich, dark smell of roasting coffee and the sweet, cloying scent of vanilla syrup, the high-pitched scream of the milk steamer, the percussive clatter of ceramic mugs, the hum of a dozen conversations. It all blended into a roar that echoed the frantic pounding in my ears. I ordered a black coffee. I knew I wouldn't be able to drink and found the corner table I had scouted in my mind. It was perfect, a small island of relative privacy in a sea of public noise. My hands felt clammy and cold. With my heart hammering against my ribs, I made my way to the restroom. The face in the mirror was a stranger, pale, with dark circles under the eyes and a frantic, hunted look. This wasn't the face of a calm, sympathetic friend. This was the face of a conspirator. Get it together. Sarah. For Emily. I took out my phone. The smooth glass feeling slippery in my trembling hand. I swiped it open, my thumb almost missing the icon for the voice memo app. I disabled all notifications, switched it to Do Not Disturb, and then, with a final, shuddering breath, I pressed the small red circle. The timer began its silent, relentless climb. Ling ling E. Ling ling R. The phone was now an active, listening thing. A silent witness. I slipped it into the outer pocket of my jacket, angled just so, and walked back to the table, feeling as if everyone in the room could hear the secret beating of my heart. Tyler arrived exactly at 10. A vision of casual, unearned confidence. He navigated the morning crowd with an easy grace, nodding at the barista like an old friend. He wore a soft leather jacket and a smile that was both dazzling and utterly empty. He slid into the chair opposite me, the scent of expensive cologne washing over the table. Sarah? Hey, thanks for doing this, he said, his voice smooth as honey. You're a real lifesaver. I had to physically bite the inside of my cheek to keep from flinching. I summoned a smile from some reserve of strength I didn't know I possessed. Of course. Tyler. Don't worry about it. I get it. Wedding planning is a nightmare. You're telling me? He sighed, leaning back as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. And that was all it took. The stage was set, his ego was primed, and he was ready to perform. He launched into a masterful monologue, weaving a narrative of himself as the patient, logical hero in a world of feminine chaos. He spoke of Emily's spiraling stress, her obsession with details like invitation fonts, and the constant drama from her bridesmaids. I listened, my body rigid, my mind a frantic loop of nod. Smile. Look sympathetic. Keep him talking. Each word he spoke was a small, sharp cut against the image of the woman I knew, the strong, vibrant, joyful friend he was painting as some hysterical bridezilla. My coffee sat untouched, growing cold. It's just a lot to manage, he concluded with a world-weary sigh. The vibration came without warning. A sudden, violent buzz against my ribs that made me jolt in my seat. My blood turned to ice. A call. For one horrifying second, I saw it all unraveling. I risked a glance down and could just make out the shape of Michael's contact photo through the thin fabric of my pocket. Of course. He was checking in. My hand shot to my pocket, my fingers fumbling blindly to decline the call. The rough texture of the volume button, a temporary anchor in a sea of panic. Tyler paused, his head cocked. "Everything okay?" he asked. A flicker of something annoyance, suspicion in his eyes. Adrenaline surged through me, sharpening my senses. I pulled out a light, airy laugh that sounded shockingly convincing even to my own ears. "Oh, God. Yes. Sorry. Just my mom. You know how they are before a wedding. She's called me 3 times this morning to ask about the exact shade of the napkins." He bought it. The suspicion vanished, replaced by a look of commiseration. He rolled his eyes. "Don't even get me started. Emily's mom has opinions on everything." The crisis was averted, but it left me shaken. My nerves frayed drauf. I knew I couldn't drag this out any longer. It was time. I leaned forward, creating a bubble of confidentiality around our table. "Look, I totally get why you had to make a tough call. It's just, I have to ask. Why our weekend?" "Tyler, I thought I heard Jessica mention something about a girls' trip in May. It just seems like that would have been so much easier for everyone." I let the question hang in the air, framing it as a point of genuine, friendly confusion. The shift was instantaneous. The mask of the charming, put-upon fiancé didn't just slip, he took it off and set it aside. A slow, deeply arrogant smirk spread across his face. It was a look of profound self-satisfaction, the look of a chess player explaining a brilliant move to a novice. "You're sharp, Sarah. I'll give you that," he said, his voice dropping. The ambient noise of the coffee shop, the hiss and clatter and chatter, all of it faded into a distant hum. There was only his voice. The May trip was an option. Sure, but it was an option with negotiations, discussions, a whole committee vote with her friends. It was messy, inefficient. He took a theatrical sip of his latte, drawing out the moment. I felt a strange ringing in my ears. My entire universe had shrunk to the space between us, to the phone in my pocket, to the confession I knew was coming. "Look, between us," he continued, his eyes gleaming with condescending pride. "Emily gets carried away. She's wonderful, but she's a romantic. She doesn't always see the logical path, the most optimized outcome. Sometimes." He leaned in closer. "You have to lock things down and make the decision for her. Choosing your weekend, a weekend she was already committed to, meant there were no arguments, non-negotiating. The decision was already made. It was clean. It was just efficient. Efficient. The word landed in the air between us, cold and sharp and heavy as a block of steel. He wasn't just admitting it, he was proud of it. He had stripped my best friend of her agency, of her own bachelorette party, and called it efficiency. He saw her joy, her friendships, her life, as data points to be optimized. The confession was 1,000 times more chilling coming from his own lips. My vision tunneled. The face across from me seemed to warp, the charming features twisting into something ugly and reptilian. I had to get out of there before the rage and disgust boiling inside me erupted. I glanced at my watch, my hand shaking slightly. Oh my gosh. Look at the time. I have a vendor call in 10 minutes I completely forgot about. The lie came easily. A necessary shield. "No problem," he said, completely oblivious, basking in the glow of his own perceived cleverness. Hey, thanks again for this. You really helped me clear my head. Anytime, I managed to choke out, the words tasting like poison. Walking out of that coffee shop was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I didn't run. I forced myself to walk at a normal pace, feeling his eyes on my back with every step. The moment the heavy glass door swung shut behind me, I broke into a disparity, stumbling run for my car. I fumbled with the keys, my vision blurred with hot, unshed tears. I finally got the door open and collapsed into the driver's seat, the lock clicking shut with a sound of profound finality. And then the dam broke. A ragged, guttural sob tore from my throat, a sound of grief and rage and violation. I pounded a fist against the steering wheel, the sharp pain a welcome distraction from the agony in my chest. After what felt like an eternity, the sobs subsided into shuddering breaths. My hands were still shaking, but I reached into my pocket and pulled out the phone. The screen was still lit, the timer reading 2, 3, 4, 7, with a final, decisive tap. I stopped the recording. It was done. I stared at the file, my own personal Pandora's box. I had to know. I pressed play. His voice, slick and confident, filled the small, silent space of my car. Make the decision for her. It was just efficient. Hearing it again, knowing it was captured, solidified the rage in my heart into something cold and hard and purposeful. I opened my contacts. My thumb scrolled down past dozens of names until it found hers. Emily, a picture of us from last summer, laughing on a boat, smiled back at me. A fresh wave of grief hit me. I was about to shatter that smile. I was about to break her heart to save her life. I started a new text message. I attached the audio file, the little paperclip icon feeling impossibly heavy. My fingers trembled as I typed out the words, each one a small, necessary act of destruction. I am so sorry, but you need to hear this. My thumb hovered over the send arrow. This was the precipice. I could still delete it, call her, try to find another way, but I knew there was no other way. This truth was a poison, but the lie was a cancer. With a final, silent apology to the friend whose world I was about to upend, I pressed down. The blue bubble popped up. A silent missile launched into the heart of her life. There was no going back now. The message sent. The small blue bubble sat on my screen. Under it, the single, sterile word. Delivered. It was done. And in its wake came a silence so profound, so heavy. It felt like the entire world had stopped breathing. I sat in my car, the engine off, the only sound, the frantic thumping of my own blood in my ears. I couldn't move. My phone felt like it weighed 100 pounds. A malevolent artifact in my hand. It was no longer just a device for calls and texts. It was a vessel of destruction. And I had just launched it. Every phantom vibration, every creak of the car's cooling engine, sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through my veins. My mind, à très tôt, began to supply a horrifying reel of possibilities. Emily, listening to the recording in disbelief, her face crumpling, her calling me, screaming, accusing me of faking it, of being jealous, of trying to ruin her life. Tyler, somehow getting the upper hand, convincing her it was an elaborate trick, a deepfake, anything but the truth. Them. Together. Turning on me. Branding me as the villain in their story. The friendship I cherished. The one that had been my lifeline in this city. Turning to ash because of my own actions. After what felt like a lifetime, but was probably only 10 minutes. I forced my numb fingers to turn the key in the ignition. Driving home was an act of pure muscle memory. I don't remember the turns I took or the traffic lights I stopped at. When I walked through my front door, Michael was standing in the hallway. His face etched with worry. He didn't ask. He just saw the look in my eyes and knew. He wrapped his arms around me, and I collapsed against him. Not crying, but shaking with a deep, silent tremor that seemed to come from the very center of my bones. I sent it. I whispered into his chest. I know, he said, holding me tighter. Now we wait. Waiting was the purest form of torture. We didn't turn on the television. We couldn't eat. I paced the length of our living room. From the window overlooking the quiet street to the fireplace on the far wall. Over and over again. My phone sat on the coffee table. Screen up. A tiny gray checkmark under my message turned blue. Read. My breath caught in my throat. She had seen it. She had opened it. Now, presumably, she was listening. The silence in our house became charged. Electric with unspoken dread. 1 minute passed. Then 5. Then 10. With each second that ticked by, the certainty that I had made a catastrophic mistake grew into a monstrous, suffocating presence. Michael tried to get me to sit. To drink some water. But I couldn't. I was a wire pulled too taut. And any attempt at rest felt like it would make me snap. An hour after the message was read, the phone rang. The sound was so violent, so jarring in the stillness, that I screamed. It wasn't a loud scream, but a sharp, terrified gasp. We both stared at the phone as it vibrated on the wooden table, her smiling face lighting up the screen. My heart sized. This was it. The verdict. My hand was shaking so badly that Michael had to take the phone and press it into my palm. You have to answer it. Sarah, he said gently. I swiped to answer, my thumb slipping twice on the screen before it connected. I held the phone to my ear. My throat so tight I couldn't have spoken if I'd wanted to. Sarah. It was her voice. But it was a ghost of itself. A thin, ragged whisper, punctuated by a shuddering a hitching breath. It wasn't the sound of anger. It was the sound of something shattering. Emily, I'm here. I managed, my own voice cracking. I heard it, she whispered. There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of her trying to draw a breath. I played it for him. My blood ran cold. You played it for him, Em. What happened? He denied it at first, she said, her voice hollow, devoid of all emotion. He laughed. He actually laughed and said you were crazy. That you must have edited it somehow. He said you were jealous of us. The words were like tiny daggers. The exact scenario I had feared. But then her voice changed. So I played it again. Louder. I put the phone on the coffee table between us. And I played his voice. His own smug voice. Telling you how efficient it was. I could picture the scene with horrifying clarity, the two of them in their pristine apartment. The one they had picked out together. With his confident, damning words filling the space between them. He stopped laughing then. Emily continued, her voice trembling as the memory washed over her. She said his face went from disbelief to a dark, ugly red. He didn't yell. Not at first. He spoke in that low, terrifyingly calm voice. The one he used when he was about to say something cruel. He told me I was naive to believe you over him. He started listing all the things he does for me. How he manages our life so I don't have to worry about it. As if he were my father. Not my partner. A sob finally broke through her carefully controlled voice. It was the same tone. Sarah. The same tone of voice from the recording. The condescending pride. He wasn't sorry. He was angry that he'd been caught. She took a shaky breath. He tried to grab my phone. He said I had no right to record him. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew every word of it was true. He didn't care that he had hurt me. He only cared that he had lost control. I listened. My own tears now streaming silently down my face. My heart breaking for her. For the pain and betrayal she was feeling. I told him to get out. She said. And for the first time, a sliver of steel entered her voice. I told him it was over. The party, the wedding, us, everything. I told him to pack a bag and get out of my house. There was a crash in the background of the call. The sound of something heavy hitting a wall. He's still here, she whispered. Her voice tight with fear. He's breaking things. Emily. Call the police. I said, my own voice rising in panic. No, she said, her voice firm again. I'm not afraid of him. I needed to thank you. The words stunned me into silence. Thank me. You saved me, she said. The words choked with tears. You saved me from a lifetime of that. Of being managed. Of being made to feel small. You did the hardest thing a friend could ever do. You told me the truth. Even though you knew it would destroy me. She was openly sobbing now. Can you come over? I don't want to be alone after he leaves. I'm on my way. I said, already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way right now. The days that followed were a blur of heartbreak and healing. Tyler eventually left, leaving a trail of emotional carnage and a shattered lamp in his wake. The wedding was officially Prider. Painfully. Cancelled. There were calls to vendors, deposits lost, and tearful explanations to family and friends. Through it all, I stayed by Emily's side. We spent hours on her couch, surrounded by tissues and half-eaten pints of ice cream. Talking, crying, and sometimes just sitting in a comfortable silence that was more healing than any words could be. About a week later, a new phase began. Tyler, having realized he couldn't manipulate Emily back, started trying to manipulate everyone else. He began a smear campaign, telling their mutual friends that I had become obsessed with him, that I had concocted this entire scheme to break them up. He was twisting my act of friendship into a story of pathetic, unrequited love. The lie was so insidious, so perfectly designed to discredit me, that it was almost brilliant. Emily called me, her voice shaking with rage. I can't let him do this. Sarah, I can't let him poison everyone against you after what you did for me. It doesn't matter what he says. I told her. It matters to me. She insisted. He doesn't get to control the narrative. Not this time. There was a pause. I think you should post it. The recording. Anonymously. Let the world hear who he really is. And so, late that night, I sat at my laptop and wrote out the entire story. I changed our names and a few identifying details. But the core of the story, the raw, ugly truth of it, was all there. At the very end, I embedded the audio file. With Emily's blessing, I posted it to a popular Reddit forum dedicated to stories of justice and revenge. I closed the laptop, feeling a strange mix of terror and release. We had sent the truth out into the void. We thought it would be a small act of catharsis. We were wrong. It was an explosion. The story went viral overnight. It was shared thousands, then tens of thousands of times. It was picked up by online blogs and commentary channels. People were horrified by Tyler's cold, calculating manipulation. His actions, laid bare for the world to see, were universally condemned. The fallout was swift and brutal. Michael came home from work a few days later looking grim. Someone at his and Tyler's company had connected the dots, recognized the details, and sent the story to HR. Tyler was called into a meeting and suspended indefinitely for conduct unbecoming of the company's values. His corporate climbing career was torched. His social media accounts were flooded with so much vitriol that he had to delete them. He became a digital ghost, erased by the truth he had tried so hard to conceal. Our wedding day arrived a month later, on a perfect, sunny Saturday in late April. The ceremony was beautiful, everything I had ever dreamed of. But the most beautiful sight wasn't the flowers or the dress. It was Emily, standing beside me as my maid of honor. She looked radiant, lighter than I had seen her in years, as if a physical weight had been lifted from her shoulders. During the reception, Michael stood to give his toast. He raised his glass. "I want to toast my incredible wife, Sarah," he said, his eyes finding mine across the crowded room. "She's the most loyal, courageous person I know, and she's taught me that sometimes the most important things in your life come down to knowing when to hit record." The crowd laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Emily caught my eye and gave me a small, tearful smile. In that shared look, 1,000 words were spoken. Our friendship hadn't been broken by the truth, it had been forged in it, made stronger and more real than ever before. Watching her laugh, a real, unburdened laugh, with her friends later that evening, felt like the sun breaking through after a month of rain. A weight I didn't even realize I was still carrying finally lifted from my shoulders. The relief was a profound, key at peace. We had faced the ugly, painful truth, and we had come out the other side. Not unscathed, but whole. We learned that true friendship isn't about protecting someone from pain, it's about giving them the truth they need to protect themselves. It's about being willing to risk everything to save someone from a life that is, in its own quiet way, Ali. We chose the hard truth over the easy lie. And in doing so, we found a freedom and a bond that no manipulator could ever take away.